Hola, bonjour, and hello, everybody. You are listening to Worldwide Tea. It's an international drag race podcast where we talk about everything about the international drag race seasons and how wonderful and joyous and insane and how off the TV they currently are right now. But we're excited to do it every single week. And as always, I am Evan Sawdey from Pop Matters.
I'm Gregory Ellwood from the playlist and the LA Times. And in fact, I have a story running on Thursday in the LA Times with Oscar-nominated production designer of Nosferatu. So if you care about that movie, look for my name, look for Nosferatu, and read the story.
It's been a year of wonderfully horny movies at the Oscars, and we celebrate that, truth be told. It's been fantastic. And similarly, too, we have a lot to cover this time right now because even though we do not have a season of Drag Race running currently internationally, there is a lot of things currently in the works. Very recently, earlier this week, Greg shared with me some footage that our sweet, sweet drag queen had shared from the brand new set that they have for the next season of Brazil, which is very exciting as well. I think, if we're not mistaken, we know for a fact that UK versus 3 is currently filming, from what I
No,
understand.
UK 7 is shooting right now.
Okay.
It may have actually finished this weekend.
Oh, shit.
And I there might be a down, we don't know if there's a down week or whatever, but Queens will start disappearing over the next week. So
Yes.
look on your social medias, and if all of a sudden a queen you love is no longer posting stories or, you know, Blue Sky posts or whatever, or Twitter or that horrible site, like all good.
Exactly. So there's stuff in the works. Obviously, we had the announcements earlier on that we know All Stars France is currently underway. Obviously, later in the year we're going to be getting Drag Race South Africa. There's a lot of other things happening, but we still have season 17 going on. But let us not preclude ourselves from the fun, because before we get into anything, let's just first declare that, as always in this House of Love, we believe that all drag is valid and no queen ever deserves online hate. And as American entertainment journalists, we may not get every cultural reference and always appreciate corrections. And there are truly some great queens who simply aren't good at Drag Race, and we celebrate them all the same, Arietti. So, what we want to say is that because there's nothing going on right now, we want this place to be a resource for anyone who has any curiosity about the international Drag Race scene. Greg and I were talking a little bit before, like, at one point, we're going to be doing our list of the all-time best international lip syncs because it's one of the best parts, hallmarks of the show, and we've seen practically everything. So we got a lot to say about the issue. But before we do that, we need to talk about something that we started covering right when this podcast premiered, which was Global All Stars. And as you have heard from Gregory Ellwood from the LA Times and the playlist, it is a show that, for a lot of the online smack that people have been talking about it, funny enough, a lot of people have been watching it too. And there is a lot of joy. And I think a lot of people say that, hey, you know what? There may have been some people that had some issues with it. We know it's a great idea. We know that there's a lot of more potential on here. And most importantly, we are excited at the prospect of a season 2 of Global All Stars. So we talked about it last week. We have the idea of drafting what we think would be a genuinely awesome Global All Stars cast. And we're going to go through every single franchise and have some of our picks and talk about the whys and the hows. But before we do that, Greg has a couple things he wants to set straight for our wonderful and incredible listeners at home.
So first of all, I'm so excited to do this. I think one we were just talking about the positives of Global All Stars, and they just had DragCon London, and one of the wonderful things about it was just seeing those queens. They love each other so much. They have a lifelong friendship. They still are traveling and seeing each other and performing all the time. They support each other and lift each other up. And by the way, there's a lot of other international seasons and US seasons where can say they don't do that. So I think that there's something special about that. It's a once in a lifetime experience for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a couple of things that we need to preface. First, there are queens that we may pick in this draft that may be on international all-star seasons that, while we have some tea and we may know who might be and who might not, it's some things haven't recorded yet. Philippines All Stars hasn't recorded yet. France All
Right.
Stars hasn't recorded yet. So
Right.
we 100% don't know who those queens are, and we're sort of going a little bit in a vacuum. Also, by the time Global All Stars comes around, there will be at least one other new franchise, Drag Race South Africa, and in theory, WoW would probably want to have, if they're good, a queen from Drag Race South Africa on the season. Also, there is no way every single franchise is going to get covered. It's just not going to happen. And as happened in Global All-Star Season 1, where there was no Hispania queen because of complications and 20 million reasons why, that could happen here again. Or they could come up with a franchise where they don't have enough queens that speak English well enough that the queens are comfortable going, or the producers don't want to put them in a situation where Galavaro from season 1, where they clearly like were arm behind, tie behind her back because they could not speak in the language everyone else was as well.
Right.
But with that said, there's a possibility, I feel, with Global All Stars 2 to be the All Stars 2 of Global All Stars. A better, improved season. They learned their lessons. And if all these tariffs and world horrible things go on, they probably won't be shooting in Colombia. So I don't know where. It might be Portugal, where they're shooting Brazil. It could be in the UK. It could be, who knows?
Right.
But it might be a very different set. But hopefully Rue will still be doing it. And if not, or if Michelle isn't doing it, we do want to preface to anyone from World of Wonder listening, our queen, our icon, Anna Locking, speaks amazing English, and we'd like her to be a judge. So that is my first draft. I will draft a judge first.
Yeah.
But Evan, we're going to start off in alphabetical order.
Oh, okay,
with,
great, perfect.
With the greatest Drag Race franchise of all time, the forgotten franchise, Drag Race Belgique, and I want you to go first and give me your first choice and then your second choice to represent on Global All Stars.
I'm so glad you asked that. Now, Belgique has some fascinating queens. I think Belgique truly is the thing where there is a degree of talent and fashion there that is so unique to the franchise. And some of the other European franchises, there's a little bit of blend sometimes in the styles over there. But let me just tell you something. Not just because it's a wonderful horny pick as well, but when Le Veuve came out with that beard, with that whip, with that whole leather aesthetic on there, you knew something was up. And then the fact that on episode 1, when she won her talent show challenge as a comedian, I was deeply impressed. There's a lot of things that we could talk about with the Belgique seasons on there, but Le Veuve, the fact that they made all the way to top 2 on their season immediately put them on the map. And for a bearded queen to do that well, like, yes, we've had Danny Beard, but for the most part, bearded queens don't do well. And even if you look back at Belgique season 1, Mocha Bone also didn't do particularly well as well. So the fact that that was not even a halting or a proclivity to them doing well, absolutely my pick. I think for me and for Belgique, I think it's almost the only pick I could go with. However, if you really put a gun to my head and had to make a second pick, I would have to go for my backup on this one here, which would be season 1's Susan. Even though it is the most generic name a queen has ever had in the history of the franchise, my God, she is gorgeous. She is beautiful. She can do a fashion challenge. She won her ball challenge. Let's not forget. And I think genuinely, it has a genuine shot to potentially go all the way over there. She made it. I think she made it to like 4th or 5th on season 1. Like, she did pretty well, all things considered, even with one challenge win. But that's definitely my backup there. But it's absolutely my pick would be Le Veuve if we had to pick.
So we agree on one thing. My actual number 1 pick is Susan from Grindr, and by the way, don't rule out the fact I've heard a rumor that Grindr is one of the sponsors of Drag Race Brazil. So you never know, it might be a nice tie-in where they're like, please cast Susan and we'll also sponsor Global All Stars. But also I think, I'm sort of looking also at this as a producer. You need some fashion queens, you need some comedy queens, you want the best of the best.
Right.
But when there's a choice between, do we do a fashion icon or do we pick something else that helps make the cast a little more interesting? That's one of the reasons I'm picking Susan. Also, Susan is cute and adorable, and all of the horny gays who watch the show will be like, I want to see her out. Listen, if you can't have a winter season with Lena Galore in a confessional, having Susan in a confessional wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, I think we're agreeing on that. Yes.
Yes. My second pick might be a surprise to you. It's Chloe Clark. So Chloe Clark what if you go back and you look at the runways, was a fashion diva on her season. I think she's season two,
She was
not
season two,
season
yes.
season two, and she went home a little early. I think I actually
Uh-huh.
remember it being sort of controversial at the time, but I just feel like it would be an interesting runway queen. Also, don't know if she speaks English, but hopefully she does. And if for some reason Chloe Clark is not available, the one other person I would put in here is just for the camp of it all is, and I'm surprised neither of us picked her, is Peach. Peach with her iconic sword talent show number. That is a
Yes.
meme for many online. Peach wasn't great in everything else, but
Right.
Peach did give us that. So go ahead.
Oh, I was about to say that makes me really, really happy too, because I feel like when Global All Stars was announced, I think part of the reason a lot of us were drawn to it, and I think why some people might have certain expectations towards it, is because the cast was so strong. It was almost
Yeah.
across the board, people that placed third or fourth or whatever from the seasons. But I think we know deep in our hearts that there are some queens who didn't make it all the way, or didn't even make it halfway, who truly had some stuff to go through. So I think that's good. I think the other thing a lot of people might not have realized if they hadn't stuck around with it is that Chloe Clark won her fucking snatch game too. Let's not
Yeah.
forget, for doing Gollum of all goddamn people. So like there is so much potential there, and it's also the kind of thing where we're running under the assumption that this is a Rue hosted season. I think she would love her. I think that is a
Yep.
fantastic choice, truth be told. I still think Lavuv. The thing with Lavuv for me is that I think she would give so many of the girls a run for their money, especially if she had a little bit more time and budget. But I think we're kind of in a lot of agreement here. Susan would be fantastic too. I'm excited by all the possibilities there.
Susan would be great. And then the only other alternate I would say, and we're not supposed to be doing these alternates,
Right.
is Gabbana would bring drama. And if they want someone to bring drama, Gabbana would bring drama, and also would be cute on the confessionals.
Right.
Wait, I have to stop this really quick. I have to go to the bathroom. Can we pause? I'm so
Yes.
sorry.
Okay.
So, Evan, that brings us to south of the border, to a franchise that is literally now shooting its second season. So granted, by the time Global All Stars comes around, there will be a whole other crew or cadre of queens that could
Hmm.
potentially be there. So we're sort of picking from a limited pool that won't be as limited. But Brazil, and I also would love you to go first. Who is your first pick to represent Drag Race Brazil?
So when we were talking about this challenge, I did worry about some of the seasons that had like one or even two seasons on there, because
Yeah.
when we get to like USA where there's 17, obviously I think our picks are going to be a little bit different on here. But this one, I'm curious how much our tastes line up on here. Because I did initially, my backup was going to be my number one, but the more I thought about it, I'm like, no, let's make it genuinely interesting on here. I want a girl who can do fashion. I want a girl who can do comedy on here. If I had to make my pick, genuinely, and remember, Global All Stars, we already had Miranda Lebrau, who did very well, do,
Yeah.
okay on her run. But for me, I think I gotta go with Shannon Scarlett. I think I do. Because
Interesting.
remember, like, she was still fashionable, she was still funny. I think she won the advertising challenge on her season. Like, she did pretty good, all things considered. I think she came in fifth, from what I remember. But like, she was just, I remember she was so fantastic. I remember that she had such a good chemistry with Organza all the way through. Like, I think she could be a
Mm.
really fun player in the game. But honestly, if I had to pick a backup for that, I think I have to go with and maybe this is a little bit presumptuous, but I think the only other real choice that we can make out of this whole list, and it's got to be Bettina Polaroid. I feel like if we're gonna go with something on there, we have to go with a queen, potentially controversial in some ways. But I remember like leading right up to that finale, like I wasn't as big a fan of Helena going into the last part, but I remember like Bettina was like right up there for me. I was like, oh my God, I was kind of wondering if she was going to do it, and then obviously Organza took it, and that was totally great. But like, I just feel like as that fashion girl, as that just kind of that standout, there was just something about her energy that I really enjoyed, and I kind of was hoping and thinking that she was going to potentially take it on there. So who knows? Maybe she would do it in that season, but that's gotta be my pick. Do any of my picks match up with what you have?
They do.
Uh-huh.
But not completely.
Okay.
So I need to preface this. I have not seen the entire Brazil season. I've
Oh,
only
okay.
seen like the finale. I've seen a couple episodes, and I've seen all the queens online. So I'm sort of judging. I would say,
It's
I
more
would
of a
be a
vibes based.
failure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably be the quality of a World of Wonder producer, just like being, oh, she's pretty, let's cast her.
Right.
So, my first pick actually, and I'm trying to be a little safe. My first pick is Helena. I just think she's so different from Miranda Labaro that I just feel like it would be an interesting a better, maybe not more accurate, a a more Brazilian drag
Yes,
representation of Brazilian
representing on the
drag.
world stage. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, on the world stage. And then my second pick is another top four queen, which who you picked is Bettina Polaroid, and partially because I have tea that she definitely speaks English.
Okay.
So I think part of the reason why she wasn't cast for Global is because they thought she had a chance to win, and
Mm.
Miranda never had a chance to win in the top four. So that's why I don't know if people remember this, but Miranda was cast while and shot it while Brazil was still airing
Hmm.
and was in Colombia while all the other queens were promoting and was like doing Zoom
Hmm.
interviews and stuff like from her hotel room. But that would be my two choices. But I have heard that part of the reason that it was Miranda also was because a lot of the Brazilian queens did not speak English. That now almost all of them to a T are doing their best to learn English because Brazil is such a big market that they've sort of been told, hey, if you don't get on global, or you might get on a versus season, you might get on a can or another internet or slate, who knows, Slaycation too.
Hmm.
So that in theory, the pool of Brazilian queens will be bigger. Let's say we do a draft 2 years from now for
Right.
Global All Stars 3. Like,
Yeah.
so that's the good news. But I
Yeah.
do feel like I would say, will someone from Belgium definitely be on Global All Stars 2? Maybe. Will someone from Brazil be on Global All Stars 2? Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're not going to turn that down.
Yeah, and you could tell that they were told to expect certain things because I remember going to
Yeah.
DragCon this last year, and Organza, she paid for the whole multi-double wide booth situation there to try and get ready for it. And I'm not sure if the lines necessarily justified that expense on there, which is a shame because obviously
Yeah.
she is an absolute star. And, again, we love our ballroom divas more than anything else. But I would love to see it. And again, I feel like I was so genuinely impressed. We didn't get a chance to cover it when we started the podcast, but I was so genuinely impressed with Greg Queen as a host of that show. At first, I was like, okay, the winner of, Queen of the Universe, I'm excited for her. But as a little bit as time went on, like it was like episode 3 or 4, you could tell she was having fun with it. And of
Mm.
course, if we're assembling our global panel, we have to have Dudu Bertolini with whatever hand gestures he's doing at all times. We have to have that on the panel. I mean, let's be real.
I mean, maybe. There's only so many guest judges you can have. Let's
That
see
is
where they
true.
shoot it.
That's true.
So that, to be honest, that sends us actually north of the border
Hmm.
to Canada.
Oh, Canada.
And dear Mr. Trudeau, please don't turn the electricity off in the Northeast as we battle with or maybe you should. Maybe you should.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm gonna start off with Canada first
I'm
because
so excited.
I have a controversial first pick.
Okay.
So my first pick has already appeared on Canada versus the World. So this would be her third appearance.
Okay.
But I also feel like she got robbed on Canada versus the World season 2. And I feel we need Miss Fiercealicious. We need Fiercealicious to be on a Rue season. We need her runways, we need her delusion, and we need her drama. So she's my first pick. She's actually not even the greatest lip syncer,
Right.
but she can do comedy challenges, and she is a great talking head. And I feel like the American and UK fans who are casual or just English speaking fans who maybe have not watched Canada
Hmm.
will love her. And I just feel like she will promote the show like house down boots. And you
100%.
need that. And so that's and also her runways in Canada versus the World season 2 were utterly fantastic. Like so
Absolutely.
good. My second pick, I I am sort of shocked has not been on the first two seasons of Canada versus the World, or on, I don't believe is going to be on this UK season, who I think is one of the most underrated Canadian queens that the show has had, and that is Vivian Vanderpuss. I love Vivian Vanderpuss. I think if you love Susie Toots, Vivian Vanderpuss is Susie Toots times 3,000. Like, she's more talented, she has better runways. I I think Vivian would bring comedy and runways and an energy that Global could totally use and would be so different than who did we have on season one? Pythia, who is
Yeah.
also representing Greece a little bit because she's Greek living in Canada.
Mhm.
But I think Vivian would be great. So Evan, who are your picks for Canada?
So here, let me tell y'all a little something who are listening at home right now. One of the things that we started this podcast, the whole reason we started this is because very clearly, Gregory's a super fan of the franchise as I am as well, and obviously we may not always match up on opinions, and I think that's going to come through, especially when we get to Mexico. However, there's a lot of things that Greg and I absolutely agree with. So it is of no shock to me that my number one pick is also Vivian Vanderpuss. Although we did not
Wow.
coordinate this before we started recording, by the way, so that makes me so happy. Y'all, her opening look, she comes out as a couch and she takes the plastic off herself. Like, that is next level camp. And also, I mean, I will always remember she had that one, if we're talking about fun, stupid mini challenges, when they had to do the flash date with Brooklyn,
Mm-hmm.
and then she comes out and is like in a character and talks about how like it's like your eyes look like whirlpools or whatever, and like just truly one of the most underrated queens.
Yes.
Shocking she hasn't been back as of yet, and the only reason I can imagine is because she said no. I can't think of any other reason.
I
I'm confident production had to have asked her at some point.
I
Who
think they're
knows?
Toronto biased, to be honest.
Okay, and that,
I think, but I don't know. Oh,
yeah, which is
yeah,
possible and fair, but also on top of that, the other thing I will say, the other thing I will say is my backup pick is I always like looking out for the kind of the underdogs, the queens that really deserve a break. Uh, and for me, like as much as I do want to say justice for Halal Bay because she was first out on season 3, and I thought she was
Halal Bay on a Rue season. Oh my God, that is literally insane.
That's I'm
Like,
not saying that's my pick. I'm just saying justice for Halal Bay. I'm just putting that out there. But Bombay's mom, let's not forget. My pick
mm,
would actually be a queen that didn't make it very far, that I thought had a really good fashion sense, had started to build up a good storyline, and I feel like could potentially bring it out there. I think is a left field pick for me, but for me, also from season 3, I got to go with Shalazan LaRue because Shalazan LaRue was genuinely, she had the sass, she had the smarts to it. She did get slipped up and I think went out, I think it was like fifth or something like that, pretty, like
yeah.
somewhat early on in her run before the halfway point. But I could tell that she was that queen. And the fact that I've seen her, so many other queens, like sharing stages with her, so many designers working for her, I can tell that she's still working on it. She has that proud Indigenous spirit going with her. And she has genuinely a great sense on there. I feel like she would basically, I wonder how she would do on the larger stage, but I feel like because she would be such a good Indigenous representation, and especially with a little bit more time and knowing how the game works a little bit more, I think she could be a player on here. Canada is such a wide swath of queens that we can pick on here. This is really one of those queens that like you hate to see that potential kind of snuffed out so quickly. So I would love to see if she had a chance. Maybe she's a little bit more better designed for a Canada versus, but at the same time, if we're talking about drafts on here, she's on my wish list.
Listen, our picks are going to be chaos because I'm going to tell you, if you had said pick 15 other queens, you think I might pick, I would not have picked her. Um, but I think that's what's interesting about it. And I do feel like when they do these shows, they like to, you know, sort of surprise. And listen, no one thought Tessa Testicle would represent Germany, so
And
you
do
never
well.
know.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
sort of do well, like sort
Yeah,
yeah.
she won a
Um,
challenge. That's something, right?
yeah, that's true. And
Briefly, I do.
also,
Oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, go.
I wanted to briefly go and comment back on the why would Fierce Delicious I think would actually be a great pick too.
Yes.
Is because as we discovered what was the biggest problem with Global All Stars. It wasn't something the producers could have picked, but it was Kitty and it was Queen Kong being miserable for a lot of the season. And that's not something that you as a producer would necessarily know that's how that narrative is going to play out. That's just what happened. And then they had to basically go on damage control for the entirety of the run. The thing about
Mm.
Fierce Delicious is that her shade and her delusion is so specific, is so it's one of those things where like I can't even define what Kitty was going through of the kind of this obnoxious entitledness. Like Fierce's sense of delusion comes from such a specific place, and her attacks are so poisonous but yet still within universe. Like they don't feel like they're cruel, they feel like they're drag queen. Like it's that's like the thing where
Yeah.
like it doesn't extend into bullying. It's like this is I'm the bitch and I'm the best and how dare you get a placement higher than me. That really feels like a lot of what her vibe is, and I feel like that would translate into better
Yes.
drama than any of the other queens that we had on GS1. I feel like that's
I,
kind of where a lot of that strength would be. And again, she's already been on Traders Canada too, so she
oh yeah.
has the television experience. She's ready to go. Yeah.
I think that's also a part of it. I would also say if people are wondering there's one queen who is a Vivian Westwood, stan. Why did we not mention her? I would just say she might be on your television screen maybe sooner than you think. But we'll see. We'll
We'll
see.
see.
So now it's time to now this I think might be quite controversial.
Okay.
We're going to go down under. We're going to go to queens who might have been on RuPaul's Drag Race Down Under and just Drag Race Down Under, maybe. Um, I'm gonna go with my picks first.
Please.
My first pick is probably the greatest, one of the greatest living Australian queens who just sort of had everything that could possibly go wrong and still make it to the final episode run, and that is Art Simone. Art Simone is a legend in Australia. She's a legend to her peers across much of the drag world. And she's super funny. Her drag is top tier 24/7. She's never in a look that doesn't look amazing and great. And she's funny and she's smart. And it was just wrong time. Like it just did not, it was, I don't even think when she was on Drag Race, sorry, on Down Under season 1, I don't even think it was a case of she's not a queen who's good at Drag Race. I just think everything that possibly could have vibe gone wrong, like went wrong. Also, remember, she has one of the funniest the library is open
Yeah.
in the history of the show.
Of the
So
show.
if she's if she's in the right mindset, if she's supported enough, maybe is in a set that isn't in a freaking tiny set, maybe she can do better. So she's my number one.
So
My
briefly
number
for the fans at home, I just want
Yeah.
to highlight, if you don't already know, Art Simone, she had a deal with WoW before the show even
Yes.
started. She had a show that was running with them too. And when she walked into the workroom, everyone was scared as hell. But I think part of the reason why her narrative is so insane, and we're just putting some knowledge on the people who don't know, she was eliminated episode 2 of the show and had one of the most bitter exits we had ever seen, and then was brought back 2 episodes later for a recycling challenge, design challenge, and stayed all the way until the end. Like she had one of the wildest runs potentially in the history of Drag Race too. So I fully think that absolutely she deserves another shot, because also at the same time, I would argue Down Under is still finding its voice, even 4 seasons
Yes.
in, truth be told. So I think if she did come back, whether it be global or if somehow she ended up in the Down Under season, they're such different things. They know a lot better what they're doing now. I feel like even if she doesn't win, I feel like she would be a lot more supported and be more comfortable in showing off her talents and her drag that way too.
And also, she never should have gone home that episode. It was meant to create drama,
And
and
it did.
and it did. And supposedly, she was beyond furious, and I would have been too. But again, Down Under, if you watch those first 2 seasons, New Zealand producers getting the girls that they worked on in the club to the top every
Mhm.
season. And not saying Kid Amin isn't a great queen, not
Right?
saying
We love
Anita
her.
Wiglet isn't a great queen.
We love her.
You know how I feel about the winner of Drag Race Down Under season 2. But anyway, so she would be my number one, and my second might be slightly surprising. I would go with another Aussie queen, Gabriella Bucci,
Oh,
who people
oh,
seem to have forgot how great she was on her season.
from season 3,
Brought
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
brought amazing runways.
Uh-huh.
Could have won, didn't, but
Hmm.
could have won. And but also was funny and sort of like interesting and like I feel like Gabrielle would do listen, somebody has to go home second or third. And but still represent Down Under well. And I feel like she would be an interesting pick. She's not sexy pick, but I
Right.
think she'd be consistent and she'd be good. And I think too many of the other queens from Down Under, and I don't know who you're gonna pick, are still rough around the edges.
Yeah.
And I am not actually, but I need to. You know what? You tell me your two picks because I'm not sure if they fall in that category.
For the record, this is so much fun, by the way. I'm so excited to see what you pick. Like, this is like expert v expert. It's exciting. And this is the rare time so far, none of our picks match up. For me, my number one pick, it's the thing where I'm thinking almost as a producer sense, you might want to have people in a certain type and a certain mold on here. And she did
Mhm.
well on her season, but she was overshadowed by someone who was very much in the same lane as her. I gotta go with season two's Molly Poppins. I feel like on a global stage,
Um,
there is someone who would pop with comedy. Were her runways the best? No. But I will
yeah.
say that she, with enough time and with enough budget on there, I think she would actually have something to bring. And I feel like she could bring enough comedy and sass to blow past a lot of other queens on some of these challenges here. With that said, my backup pick is in the completely opposite direction, and actually someone who we've covered already on the season as well. If I'm being honest, and it might be a little bit green behind the ears, maybe a little bit young on here, but when you're thinking about fashion, and when you're thinking about design challenges, when you're thinking about someone who could bring it and has a little bit of sass to her as well, Nikita Iman is my backup there because
Oh
I
wow.
think, especially on a global stage on there, I think she could be potentially a little bit intimidated. But once she gets into that groove, as we saw in her season, I
Mm.
counted her out so many different times on the season, and she kept coming back multiple times. And I was like, okay, goddamn, like she really absolutely did the thing, and I was pretty impressed by it. So for me, that's kind of where my thing is. I do feel like Molly Poppins is, I feel like, emblem of what a down under drag is in terms of that sense of humor and sense of that comedy that helped Hannah get all the way to the end of UK season versus season
Yeah.
two. But at the same time, I feel like she still has her own thing. I feel like she's probably developed it to this point. But her and Nikita are my picks, which don't match at all with yours whatsoever, which I love.
I love I think the Nikita pick is super inspired, but probably only if they give them some money for runways,
Thousand
which I
percent.
don't know if they will. She needs a budget, but she did have some great runways. I am super curious, and also I didn't think she deserved to go home when she went home. So
100%.
I think that's a really inspired pick. I like that. I do think it's interesting that neither of us picked Vibe, but I sort of
Was
feel
wondering
like
about that. I feel like neither, but legitimately, she's good enough. And I hate saying that too, because these are drag people that
yeah,
do well, but like when I see her on the stage, it's like I truly think about what is the uniqueness that's giving them. I feel like a lot of our picks that we've done already so far, when you think about Susan, when you think about Katrina Polaroid, they have such distinct points of views.
yeah,
And Vibe is a drag machine. She is professional. She's ready to go. But I don't know what unique thing she's giving us outside of just being a really good queen. Like, and I hate to say that, but like Nikita Iman, she might be a little bit more unpolished, but she has a distinctive perspective that's unique all to her own. And I can even say that about Molly Poppins a little bit as well. So that's where
yeah.
I feel like there might be a little bit of balance on there. So I mean, we love Vibe, absolutely, but it just doesn't strike me as you're ready for the global stage as of yet.
No, I think the one thing to look out for is that Vibe is in Queen Kong's drag family,
Hmm.
and the producers might. She's a little too much like Queen in their aesthetic, like it's very much the same silhouette and how they, which is fine.
Hmm.
I, I would, I feel like I have this gut instinct where they might pick her, but we'll see, we'll see.
I
Um,
could the only reason I could see them picking her is because she wasn't judged by Rue. I could see Rue liking her. Now, loving her is a different story, but I could see her humor translating well onto that stage potentially.
I, I think it could. I am not convinced. The one other queen from Australia that I would bring up that I'm just pulling up here now is Ashley Madison.
Oh
So
yeah,
Ashley has made a name for herself going in and redoing, like she's a graphic artist in
little
her day job.
photos. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And she's a good performer. She probably went home a little too soon as well, but she's really improved her drag since she was on the show. But she's also super smart. And there's
Yes.
something about having a really smart queen in the room all the time that like helps. Not that
Mhm.
these other queens aren't smart, but she also, because of what she went through on the show, is super grounded and like realistic about all of it. Like, well, the
Mhm.
way she talks about it is a way that very few queens talk about it. Like They're like, I get what I did, I get what I went through, and it's like, and you just move on. And I think that could be refreshing. We'll see what I don't know if she'd do it. Actually, she would probably do it. But you know, we'll see. But Down Under does have some interesting picks.
Yes.
Next up, and they did not get to get represented on Global All Stars 1, is I think one of our favorite franchises, Dragas España. And Evan, I want you to go first. Who are your picks from España?
So I went on completely different ends of the spectrum here. These are queens who I have mentioned before, who I think would do well. One of them is definitely my own personal pick on here, but in terms of queens who I think would do well, are we going to be surprised that I'm going to say La Nina de Lantro? I think
Oh,
that if you want to talk, I mean, especially someone who is just, I mean, drop dead sexy, has the personality, as we know, can speak English pretty well. Not that that was a qualifier for this, but like someone who also brought, if not, it wasn't every one way, but almost every other runway that she had on her run was like almost that level, almost at that global level that you were expecting for her. I think she would do well. I think she would be hilarious. I think that also, I mean, obviously we love our trans representation on the season as always. I think that if she could did as well as she did on her season, she only got undone by the performance, the Eurovision style voting on there. I think she could have done a great job in the finale. Love you, Vampy, but La Bella Vampy. But I think she would do well. My backup would be someone who's still doing it. I have shouted her out previously as our pick of the week for a queen to follow on there, but one of the original fashion girlies who truly deserves that shot. It's got to be Hugasio Crujiente. It's got to be someone who came in, had some of the most mind-blowing runways I had ever seen, and this was early on. This was season
yeah.
1 when Hugasio walked in. Struggled a little bit on some of the comedy challenges, was still funny, and in some of the stuff that she posted since then, clearly showed she had a sense of humor, that she could do English, that she could do a lot of other things. But like again, it's one of those things where like I also view it as much as it would be good television. Some of these queens would have redemptive arcs that I think would change lives potentially. That is part of the reason why Chalazan LaRue is on my list, but also that's part of the reason why I do think it would be great to see Ugasio as well. But those are my two picks. Do they line up with yours at all?
Not at
At
all.
all. Well, this is a little bit of a deeper bench, so I think
Yes,
that's
very deep bench.
yeah.
Very deep bench. But in fact, I think La Nina would have been on my top five, but I it is a super deep bench. And they've also had all-stars, so you have to take that into account.
Right, right, right.
But I'm doing it again. I'm going to upset the fan base. My first pick is someone who was already on España All-Stars. But talk about needing a redemption. Talk about getting fucked over by production and her fellow queens, and probably having one of the greatest runway packages in Drag Race history, is Sagittaria. And
I should have guessed that. I should have
I
known how
and
to
I
guess.
don't mean to
Yeah,
be a Sagittarius stan or whatever, and I am, but I also feel like they owe her.
yeah.
Like the Espana producers owe her to go to WoW and say, give her enough, let her do this. First
Yeah.
of all, she speaks English, and they all don't. A lot of the Spanish queens do not speak good English.
Mhm.
It's a problem. It's not, I mean, it's not a problem in their lives, but if they want to do all this stuff, it's an issue.
Right.
Sagittarius speaks English. She also would bring the motherfucking runways. She is friends with many international queens already, which I think would be interesting if because she knows Fierce.
Mhm.
If there's some of them show up that know each other, I think that's a really interesting storyline that they didn't get to do in Global. So I like that. So she's my first choice. And I listen, would she win? Probably not, but would she make it? She might have a SOA arc. She might make it top six, and she would get to redemption herself. So
Mhm.
I love that. My second pick will literally, I cannot wait for you. My second pick is a legend in on Drag Race España, is someone who I hated in their first season for their season, but I have now come to love in a appreciative way. A queen who is the jujube of España, the one and only Poopy Poison. Poopy
I
Poison
almost put her on. I'm not even kidding. Holy shit.
Poopy Poison is the jujube of Espana. Never think she's gonna win, which is okay.
Right. At
But
all. She would have no
never,
chance. She would be
no
so
chance.
fucking entertaining though.
But
Unquestionably.
would make Rue and Michelle laugh their asses off, has been taking English lessons from what I've heard and what they've said. So even if they're English, but just their face, they are. So it's funny how you picked. Who did you pick from Belgique again? Le Veuve, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Le Veuve is an actor who does drag.
right.
Le Veuve is like Angelita from España,
But
an
less,
actor who
but
does.
more digestible.
Yes, Poopy is both an actor and a drag queen, but really is a drag queen, but is
Yeah,
is a talented actor and a comedic actor. And that's why I would love to have Poopy on. Poopy would kill it in Snatch Game, even with like English as a second language.
hmm
Uh, I would love to see it. I don't know if it would happen, but it would literally set if when it happened, I feel like Hispania would explode. They would just be
absolutely.
like, "Are you kidding that they put Poopy on Global All Stars?"
Because she was the comedy queen and she did well enough in her season. She placed
Yep.
fourth, I think, in season one,
Yep.
but they kept bringing her back, not as a competitor, but just as a guest because
Yeah.
she's so fucking fun. And then when she finally got around to España All Stars, she did pretty well. She placed
Yeah.
fifth. Like overall, like so she and y'all, you don't understand. Like at this point, I'm with the exact same opinion of Greg. I was not the biggest fan of her out the gate, but the more she kept coming back, it's like, oh god damn it, no, you're really entertaining, you're really fun. Like it's and she's really kind of embraced that role so much too. So I'm excited about that. Yeah,
I think part of the reasons we didn't like her on season one is she really wanted it.
yeah,
And she was a little delusional, like in thinking that she should be as. But when she started coming back on the show, and then when she was an all star, she's like, she knew she wasn't winning.
right.
She was just there to have fun.
And she did.
And she also was one of the few queens who did not. She wasn't an instigator attacking Sagittarius. And
Right.
I think she was this one of the calm mature voices in the room. And I think that's what also made me sort of like her. I could be remembering this wrong, but I feel like I don't remember her being one of the ones who was always
Yeah.
attacking Sagittarius.
She had a lot
Um,
of mean things to say about Saran Pushi, though. I don't remember what that was about.
ah,
But
Scrubbage.
but low
But
key, your pick
yeah,
about Sagittarius, I just want to double click on that real quick because the producers are aware of what the narratives are that existing. Because
yes,
part of the reason that we had Kid Amin on UK versus 2 was because she was fucking owed. She got screwed out of her placement in season 2 of Holland because what had happened? They discovered
oh
another
yeah,
queen had a cell phone on set that was part of a whole blow up and that was
yep.
instigated by her winner. And instead of eliminating her on the spot, they made her lip sync, and Kidamine, who had won 3 challenges, was in the bottom that week, and they eliminated her. It was truly one of those, like, I'm flipping off the camera for those watching the video podcast. Like, it was truly unfair, and she should not have been there. And but I think putting her back on to show her if her stuff was needed was correct, and I feel like they could do the same for Sagittaria. Yes, Greg.
You meant Kitty Minaj, not
Kidamine,
Ketamine.
sorry. Yeah.
Ketamine is the winner of Drag Race. It's
There's too
confusing.
many Ketas.
Listen,
Sorry.
there's literally 1,000 queens.
Yes, thank you.
Uh, but yeah, it was Kitty Minaj, and yes, you're right. And I just feel like Sagittarius is owed it,
Mhm.
and I would love for her to just have that chance to just be part of the franchise in a positive way.
Yeah,
But
my only
speaking, oh,
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
My only question to you is that during that season of All Stars, she asked to go home at one point, and the judges didn't let her because they wanted to see how it was going to shake out.
Which
Do
was
you,
bullshit.
right. So my question is, do you feel like she would be comfortable enough coming back, or
Oh,
is this yeah,
yeah.
you think so? Okay.
Because I mean, I think one of the things that people have to understand with the international seasons is outside of UK, Down Under, and a little bit of Canada, where they are involved, but it's really the international producers are running these shows.
Yeah.
It's not WoW. So
Yeah.
WoW is like they there's no joke. In their there is literally a control room or like a bunch of laptops and all the feeds come in when the shows are shooting and they'll send them clips and stuff like to the execs, but they're not sending notes every freaking day being like,
Right.
what's going on? What happened yesterday? Like it's not some of them it is, yes, but for the most part, it's not. They can't deal with so many shows on a day-to-day basis. They're doing Drag Race US and All Star. They have
Right.
20 million things. So you can only do a day by day or I guess what's the term I'm looking for? But you can only do it day by day, like on so much.
Right.
But I think it's time to go to my favorite franchise, uh, France, Drag Race France, and my number pick is also a queen I think who might be owed, who
Oh,
had my first pick. She had an absolutely incredible run and made it to her final, lip synced in the greatest France final of all time, and just lost to an unstoppable force, deserving force in Kiona. And I think actually Sarah, I think she has one of the best individual runs for a finalist. I don't know if she was ever in the bottom, maybe she was. Is Sarah Forever.
yeah.
And uh I Sarah is not doing France All Stars. So maybe she's waiting, maybe she's not, maybe she doesn't want to go back. But I think Sarah would kill it. I know she speaks good English, and I think I would place money she'd be at least top five. So that's my number one pick is Sarah Forever, the runner up to Drag Race France season two, one of the greatest Drag Race seasons of all time. And my second pick is probably a little controversial, especially because in France, we in the U if you don't speak French, we lost some of the I guess bitchiness in her confessionals and how she talked because we were seeing only the translation. But really talented queen, a French legend actually, Cookie Cunty. And so my Cookie Cunty, also a comedy queen, does very good fashion, can sing and dance, and all well-rounded. And I think both either Sarah or Cookie would give a whole other side of France with still bringing the fashion than Soa did. And I think that's what's so great about Drag Race France is such a wide. The queens are. I mean, they all always bring it on the runway for the most part, but they are so diverse in what they bring as queens, and that's one of the reasons I love it. So my first choice, Sarah Forever. My second choice, Cookie Cunty. Evan, who are you picking from La Croisette? From
So, man, let me tell you something. I've had this debate with myself too, where like I think we've gone through and like we've talked about what are the best franchises overall, but sometimes I think about
yeah,
what are the best individual seasons of Drag Race of all time. And of course, a couple things come to mind. Obviously, US season 5, UK season 2, season 4, All Star 7. A couple things come to mind on here, but one of the ones that I think is universally acknowledged as one of the best, top to bottom, hands down, is Drag Race France season 2. It's so interesting to me that you pick two queens from Drag Race France season 2
I
because
did.
I also picked two different queens from Drag Race France season 2. That's how
Wow.
fucking good the season is, y'all. It's
Yeah.
so good. So we can't be too surprised. And for the record, Sarah Forever, 4 wins on her season's pretty good. Admittedly, Kiona still has, I think, the best overall run because she had 2 wins, but every episode that she didn't win, she was in the top 3. So pretty fucking good,
Oh,
all
okay.
considered. But man, oh man, I unsurprisingly, my other bearded queen pick, I gotta go with Peach. I cannot tell you. Oh my god, this look from Greg, I love it. I love it. I
Sorry.
love it. The
Oof.
way that she came in like a fucking thunderbolt on that first episode blew me away with her goddamn talent show, and like has that sense of humor, has some of the most iconic runways that we've seen already that have been referenced back again. I truly think she would be a absolute powerhouse on that stage. Again, to your point too, would she win? I'm not sure about that, but I do think that she would do extremely well. Greg's might
No,
be
keep
over
going.
Peach.
No. Please, I do not want to interrupt you, and I want to hear your second choice too.
My second choice is also from the same season, and truly, this. I'm just going to be honest. This is pure favoritism on here. This is truly part of the reason I love France too so much is because I connected with so many of the queens on so many things.
Yeah.
By the way, let's not even talk about how Kiona would do on an all-winner season. That's its own conversation that I think might be worth having on there. But honestly, I loved her so much. She had one of the best stories, and I want so much for her. I want Moon back on my TV so freaking bad.
Oh,
And I think she's one of the things where as I mean, as one of the trans queens that was on the season there, had such an incredible run. She did
Mm,
pretty okay on some of the challenges that she had, but let me tell you, she also had one of the most shocking turnarounds of all time when she did the musical episode, and
mm.
she actually had to portray a man in it. One of the best musicals that have ever been on the show, by the way. And then went through this like dysphoric moment on there, but like in the actual challenge itself was just mind-blowingly, astonishingly entertaining. Like she has so much to her. You could see a little bit in the finale that after she left the show on her own volition, was in the bottom two and left, that she still had this vibe. She could still feel the support of the fans on there. There was something so unique about her entire aesthetic, just both her looks, but also her personality too, that on a larger stage, I could see her like coming back as just an absolute drag monster and just destroying the stage. But for me, it's tough because season two France, that cast is so
Yeah.
stacked. Like my husband, he's like, well, if I was my pick, I'd bring back Punani, which is legit and fair because someone else who did extremely well throughout the season. So you could go any number of directions, and clearly we have. But for me, I'm still going to be Team Peach till the day I die. That and my backup as Moon, which I think again, it's hard to go wrong with this cast.
I would just say that again, Drag Race France All Stars is going to be shooting soon.
Uh-huh.
And perhaps one of those queens has a shot to win Drag Race France All Stars. You don't know.
I'm so
But
curious. Greg hasn't
I'm
told
so
me
curious.
anything, by the way, so I'm completely in the dark as we make these
Uh,
picks. I'm very excited.
but I do think France has such a deep bench,
Yeah.
and already after just 3 seasons, and I'm super excited to see what happens next. I'm actually sort of shocked they're doing All Stars. I would have thought maybe they would have waited till season 4, but I guess Spain did it too. They did three,
Right.
and then
They
maybe
waited three
yeah.
seasons and then they said
So
go, which is like,
let's
if you have the bench for it, yeah, do it.
yeah. But let's we're going to go to one of France's longtime nemesises, world a country that has made things quite difficult for them
Uh-huh.
over the centuries. We're gonna go to Germany. Well, first of all, we
Good.
need to say this. The fact that there has not been or it we don't know if and or when there will be a second German season is really sad. It's a huge market. It was the out of the 3 Paramount Plus seasons that shot in Colombia, it by the time it got there, they had figured everything out. It just was the most fine-tuned it was so good in it was talented and it was entertaining.
Mhm.
And we had what's her name? Brill. What's her who
Barbie
was the guest?
breakup.
No, Barb Breaker was a great host. Love
Yeah.
her. But the guest judge, Diane Brill, you
Yes, Diane
know,
Brill. My God, I
Diane
love her.
Brill, barely speaking German, even though she's lived there for 25 years because she's a New York City club girl and her husband's German, and she just somehow you can just speak English in Germany, but they cast her as a judge because she knows
Yeah.
German television. But anyway, I again, another robbed queen is my number one pick. And the queen that should have won Drag Race Germany season 1. I know all of the cast members of Drag Race Germany, the producers know, Rue knows should have won. And let me tell you, she fucking knows she should have won. Is Metamorkid from Switzerland. Metamorkid is had visionary runways,
She did.
was could lip sync, could sing and dance,
It was funny.
did very well in the comedy challenges, and I feel like on a global stage would be super popular. Um, it's still very bitter they lost. But
Did you not like Pandora?
I liked Pandora. I thought Pandora was fine. I didn't think Pandora was good in the comedy challenges, and I thought Pandora's runways got repetitive, and I just thought she was fine. I'm not up against, trust me, in no way am I against a cis woman winning Drag Race. Like I'm
Right.
all for it. I I would Victoria Scone, please.
Yeah.
I just I didn't think she won the season. I just
Mm.
thought that they wanted her to win so badly to make a political point, which is a-okay. That's fine.
Mhm.
I even was listening to another podcast the other day, and someone, established girl was saying sometimes the wins are political, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But and it wasn't undeserving. I just thought
Right.
Metamorkid hands down won the season. Like by the time you got to the end, Metamorkid won. Do you
Mhm.
disagree?
No, I mean, I think that the part of the reason is that Pandora, she had such an attitude to her and such a definitive professionalism to her, whereas Metamorkid had the ideas, but still was figuring out her confidence a little bit as she went along in the season. So while she had that narrative on there, I felt like it was almost the way that you saw that with Admira Thunderpussy on here, someone who just came in so confident, ready to go, that it's crazy that you would crown anyone else. That's kind of where it felt. It was almost like an Aquarius
Mm,
style narrative that they were giving her. So I wasn't too surprised overall, but it was still overall, I think as we look back on it, Germany was a much more stacked cast than I think people give it credit for. The
yes,
fact that
very
there hasn't
true.
been a second season, I think kind of dwindles that a little bit, but I that makes me almost wonder what your second pick is in that
My
sense.
second pick, I actually thought was going to be the representation for Global All Stars 1, and that's Kelly Hilton. I thought Kelly Hilton would
Oh,
be it because Kelly is from the Caribbean. I could be wrong, but speaks great English, like
yeah.
fantastic English. Metamorkid does too. But I thought Kelly was 100%. I was actually shocked they went with Tessa. I
Hmm.
still don't know to this day if they asked Kelly or if she had a conflict or something, because she is a working queen and does like cabaret shows and all. She works a lot in Germany. So but Kelly Hilton I think would be funny. Rue would love her. She's in her 40s, but she's like or almost or is 40, I think,
Hmm.
and would brings experience and um is a fighter. And I think she'd be really, really interesting. But I still would be shocked if they didn't go with Meta first if they had the choices.
100%.
But you tell me who are your picks for Germany?
So it's interesting because my backup is Metamorkid because I feel like it, duh, obviously on there. But my lead pick was actually, I think, a little bit off base. It was someone who was a fashion girl, and I would maybe even argue the fashion girl on her season. The only problem is that she didn't get very far. But honestly, the only Naomi struck me as a queen who could absolutely bring it if needed. I think it's one of the things where, especially at this point too, now that she's a little bit more under her belt, I could see her performing. I could see her interacting with Fierce Delicious. I could see her being with Sagittaria. I could see her in some of those teams or some of those contexts there, bringing it up. She just struck me immediately as someone who I felt like I don't necessarily she was robbed on her season, but I also felt like she did go home a little bit too soon, given everything else that was going on. Because she was doing pretty okay at that point until she dropped out. But she just struck me as someone who has that potential on there. And as much as, again, it's also the kind of thing too where I'm thinking slightly on a producer standpoint. I don't want every single one of my picks to be someone who was second or third in the end of their
Yeah.
season too. I want to have a little bit diversity on there. I feel like she has something more to prove on there, and that's why she would be one of my picks for that too. You disagree?
UK hun. UK hun.
I
Um
feel like I have heard something about that too,
uh
potentially, but we'll
I
see.
do you want to repick? Because
I'm fine. Listen, it's also kind of the thing too, where like there are queens. I think about too some of the queens I connect to, not even some of the ones who did
yeah.
well. Like, yes, did Victoria Shakespeare's do well? Yes. Did I care? Not really. But like it's the thing for me. It was at the end of the day, it really was Metamorkid and Pandora who were some of the
Yeah.
strongest ones. Because like even though Yvonne did pretty well, I definitely had much more stronger feelings about Kelly Hilton doing well on there. So I think that's actually a fantastic pick on your end overall.
I
But
actually
yeah,
feel like the top six were quite good. Like
yeah,
the top six
because
queens were
Lorelai
really
Rivers was also in that group too,
yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe top seven. I thought it was. I actually thought it was a more. It was a deeper cast than Brazil, and it was a
Hmm.
maybe as deep as Mexico is pretty deep.
Hmm.
Um, but we'll see. And to be honest, I'm just hoping they get any representation to on a next global to just keep the franchise
Yeah.
going.
The fact
Um,
that it is rumored that UK might have one of the queens we may have
yeah,
just mentioned as
it's
a
good.
pick is actually a good sign too, because that does mean they are opening up and letting people see what it is. Because as we saw with
Yeah,
some of the queens that were on Global already, it made queens go back and want to check out, well, what's the deal with this Nelania thing? And one of my favorite tweets from UK versus 2 was, well, I guess I got to watch fucking season because I got to
yeah,
figure out who the fuck beat Marina Summers on there. And it's like, yes, you do.
you
But yeah,
do.
yeah, it was great. It was great.
Uh,
Good picks. Good picks.
the next choice is there's rumors that the franchise might come back. We're not sure. They want the vets want it to come back. It's unclear, but Drag Race Holland.
Yes.
Um, which I was surprised wasn't repped on Global
Same.
because they had a deep bench. But who knows why? I'm gonna go with my pick first.
Go ahead.
My first pick for Holland is a queen I've actually seen perform a number of times live in Europe, and actually just I think opened for Bob the Drag Queen in Amsterdam. Super talented. Maybe she shouldn't do disco numbers with Afro wigs. But that's a European problem. And that is Sedergine. And if you remember, Sedergine from Drag Race Holland has the amazing, still to this day, I don't know what the theme of the runway was, but she basically came out in a French Marie Antoinette look that opened
What?
up to a bar. Like
Yeah.
the skirt, it was unbelievable.
One of
That's
the
when
most
you were
iconic
like,
looks of the season, genuinely. Yeah.
yeah. And super talented. Also, probably went home early. I thought that she was going to be top four. Wasn't. She also hosted the second season, sort of like pit stop for Holland, and has done a bunch of stuff. She's done like Netflix stuff, like you like sort of what we're watching, sort of stuff like they were doing, what they do with Trixie and Katya for Holland. And has done a ton of television there, and super talented. Also, as a guy, jacked and hot and like.
Which is so crazy given her clown-like exterior.
Mhm. She by the way, she'll tell you she's a drag clown. She's in the
Yeah.
Bianca Del Rio sort of
Both.
vein, but sort
Yeah.
of a little more upscale.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
She's a designer par none. Yeah.
yeah. My second, I was really hard to pick a second choice. I went with My Little Pony, who I
Oh.
who I think would bring the runways, bring the looks. Don't know how great she'd do, but I will just asterisk saying I would not be upset. And again, I know you're like, give all these other queens a shot, but I'd love to see Janie Jacquet on a longer season to have a better shot. She's super talented. Uh, did it one of the funniest UK versus lip syncs like
Hmm.
ever. Um, and I think was sort of rushed to do, from what I remember hearing, was rushed, like was a little last minute casting for UK versus World One. And I feel like if she had more time, her runways would be even better.
I
So,
remember she
but
said that her talent show was very specifically after two other things were cut or weren't able to
yeah.
make it to that thing. So like she got a little screwed over on that right out the gate. Yeah.
So those are my picks. And granted, we only have two seasons, and
Right.
there is controversy with like what we just sort of talked about.
Uh-huh.
It was a messy two seasons, in many ways, but great winners. So,
Hmm.
but those are mine. Who are your picks, Evan?
Man, let me tell you. I mean, I guess I kind of was expecting it too, but my backup pick, I just want you to know, was Sedergine
Oh,
because
nice.
truly needs her time in the sun. I think would
Yeah.
be fantastic on here. But my number one pick was also a season one girly, but also the one that I connected to. Again, we have our different types obviously on
Yeah.
here. You know, I'm gonna love the crazy alternative queens. You know, I'm gonna love the true artiste on there. But this is someone who was screwed in their season, and I'm talking about Chelsea Boy. You know Chelsea Boy
Oh,
deserved a better
yes.
chance on here. Next level
Yeah.
runways, but most upsettingly, did the snatch game, and per the judges, won the snatch game, but did not win the episode. They literally said, you won the snatch game, just not the runway, and then gave the win to someone else, which was one of the stupidest things I've ever seen.
I do have to say, the judging on the Holland seasons was some of the most batshit crazy
100%.
decisions, and I I always wondered like, why are these queens not revolting? Like it was
Yeah.
just wild sometimes. So yeah, I agree.
Because also in that end too, Envy Peru, no one's denying that Envy Peru is a great queen. However, her winning 3 episodes in a fucking row out of 4 wins overall, that was wild to me a little bit
Yeah.
because it's just like she's very good, but also like Janie just got it. She like barely snaked in her wins over there. I think actually the only other queen to get a win was actually just one win for Mama Queen. who we all remember doing one of the worst splits in lip sync of all time in history. But like, yeah, for me, Chelsea Boy deserved better. Some of the best looks I'd ever seen, and could clearly do comedy. She won with her Joe Exotic, one of the first queens to ever do it and do it justice in Holland of all places.
Yeah.
So I think that, especially now that enough time has passed, when did this season air? This was one of the very, very first ones. This was 2020.
So,
The season.
well, yeah, so
Yeah.
they recorded it in 2020. I think it came out in the winter of 2020, 2021. Like it crossed
Yeah.
over. Canada was first, was before them. UK was before them. And they were the first non-English
Yes.
season outside of Thailand that had
Yeah.
been, yeah.
So I'm glad we're both on Team Sedergine. Absolutely. Chelsea Boy, again, redemption needed, 100%. If we're gonna do it for
Yeah.
Akita Minaj, let's go ahead and do it for let's make that happen. Yeah.
Not mad at it.
Yeah.
Next up is one of my probably my second favorite franchise is Italia.
Has to.
Uh, but
Has
Evan, you tell me, who is your first pick from the 3 seasons we have of Drag Race Italia?
this is so interesting to me because when I was going back through some of it too, I was like, I thought, I don't know what your thoughts were. Season one was such an incredible mess of a season. I'm not sure for y'all who don't know, they had to like cut out and eliminate queens for bad behavior. They had to do a special
Oh yeah.
insert episode for when they were bad mouthing. And it's like the host is like, we can't have any of that negative attitude on here. So weirdly enough, in going back through it, I ended up actually picking two queens from season three. And for me,
Oh.
if we're talking about queens who need a chance at the spotlight, for me, my number one pick, I think she would destroy on a global stage. And that's Melissa Bianchini. I think that she
Mm.
would do incredibly well. I think she was smart and sassy and ready to just destroy. I mean, her runways by itself, I thought were fantastic there. She has the body to show off, absolutely
Yeah.
on there. But I think could absolutely bring something to the stage that would. She has a fierceness to her that in some of the other queens we've talked about before, like some of them are good competitors. I feel like Melissa Bianchini would go in for the kill. She is hungry for it, and I think that would translate well to a global stage. And listen. I know how well she did in the season. I have to go with my preference for my bias on here. My backup is going to be Lilia Yarn, because I still think that her aesthetic is so unique. She actually showed a lot of her personality on her season two. I actually really enjoyed a lot of what she did, but obviously, she didn't make it as far as she did. But for me, I think of people who would do well, or at least would be fun on there, especially if you throw a design challenge at her. I think she would actually do pretty darn good. I don't think that would be one that would necessarily win the season, mind you. I genuinely think that Melissa Bianchini actually could. And that's, I think, part of the reason why that could be competitive, and I think kind of throw a wrench into the machines. But those would be my two picks. But of course, this is me. I've had definitely a different relationship to Italia than Greg has. Greg has nothing but the most incredible things to say. I think if Greg had his druthers, Lena Galore would be competing again in any of these
Yeah.
franchises potentially. But who would your top two picks? Do we have any overlap?
No overlap at
Okay,
all.
I figure, but yeah,
Uh, and also a deep bench, but also have to preface it. A bunch of the Italian queens do not speak English.
right.
And I actually don't know if Melissa speaks English. I think that might be a problem. I think she's Brazilian, right? Am I wrong?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
she's
so
a
she
yeah.
speaks Portuguese. She definitely speaks Italian. I don't know if she speaks English. I would not have picked Melissa in my top two. I liked Melissa.
Really.
I don't ever think about her. She's not a queen that I think about, and I think she's gorgeous and beautiful. I have a trans first pick coming up, and it's not her. It's not
Okay.
her. The other thing is, I will preface this, is that if I knew she spoke English, or if I didn't know she doesn't speak English, which is why she has not been on any of the UK versus the Worlds, and why she was not on Global All-Star Season 1, that is the legendary Frida Kant. So Frida Kant does not speak English well. It's not a problem. It's just what it is. But she's incredible. She would be my first pick. Her drag family sister, though, is my number one pick. I have seen her live. She will slay the house down boots. She will, if she's ever in the bottom, she will be the lip sync assassin like you would not believe.
Mm-hmm.
And she will bring the attitude and the energy. And that's in Petite Noir, who was my pick she's been one of my our episode picks,
Mm-hmm.
International Queen Spotlight. and I think she'd do amazing.
Hmm.
My second pick, who 100% speaks English, and I just do not know. I don't. There's been rumors that like she was a backup on Canada and a backup on UK versus. I don't know if that's really true, but they're fun rumors if they are. Is is a legend if for anyone who is knee deep in drag race international seasons, and that's the one and only Norma Jean. And Norma Jean
The chaos
is
agent that
the
is.
chaos agent would who is just imagine Le Philippe, but like more drunk, more cigarettes. And I just love her. I actually have merch of hers. I have a t-shirt of her. She would bring, if anyone came for her, she would bring drama like you would not believe. She would not put
Mhm.
up with shit. She might even walk off the stage if Rue criticized her.
I
But
know.
I
Well,
I
she was
still
expelled
think
from her fucking season.
sort of.
Yeah.
Uh, but I just think she would be wild. Like if she was at the last, she wasn't at this DragCon UK, she was at the one before, and I was
Oh,
like,
really?
damn
Okay,
it,
cool.
I would love to go fucking just get a photo with fucking Norma Jean. She is my, I think she would be freaking awesome. But you know, Italia has a super deep bench
Hmm.
and so much to choose from, and both your picks could work and Petite Noir could work. And Norma is like a wild card,
But
but
what a wild card. Like, I
what
think
a
I would, yeah,
wild card.
absolutely. Can I
And
can I
also,
get Oh, sorry,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Can I get
No,
your
no.
honest take on something? I just wanted to curious since you are the Drag Race Italian superfan in the room. What did you think of Le Diamond's run?
Oh, I like La Diamond. I feel like no, no, no. It's sort of like what is your opinion of like I think I didn't think Electra should have won.
Right.
So and Electra's a fine queen, but she's not memorable. I think like
I mean, I don't think
if it
Paloma should
helped
have
it,
won, but she's doing just fine. So yeah.
yeah. I mean, the only I like the Diamond. I think, you know, also she's in Farida's drag family. I thought that was a
Mhm.
makeup for Farida. Like,
Mm.
but also she delivered it. Her runways were incredible.
Right.
Like, but you don't really think about her. Like, I'm trying to think. There's like, I feel like there's a bunch of even U.S. queen. Like, do we think about Willow Pill that often anymore? Do we think about? I only think about Evie probably because she brought so much drama.
Hmm.
I mean, I think that just happens sometimes.
Hmm.
But Lena is just so artistic and like she's just on another level to all these other queens that I think that's one of the things. My other big thing with Italia, and I'm quite worried about this for Global All Stars because they keep fucking doing it, is I do not need to see Queen of the Universe alumni and Drag Race Italia alumni.
We've exhausted the bench.
We've exhausted. What's her? Is it Aura? Who's from
Yeah.
Italy?
Or Eternal. Yeah.
Or I do not need to see Aura Eternal on fucking Global All Stars.
Yeah.
I don't need to see her again. She's super sweet and nice, but please, dear fucking God, no. Like, no more. No.
You heard it right here. Wow. No more Queen of the
No
Universe
more Aura
queens. We hit
Eternal.
the bench. We're done. We don't.
But Evan, we're about three-quarters of the way through.
Oh
But it
God.
is time for a franchise that has a super deep roster of queens now in just 2 seasons. And that's Drag Race Mexico.
Oh.
Who is your first choice for Drag Race Mexico?
You know my choice for Drag Race
I
Mexico. You
don't.
know my choice.
No.
I have to I have to be it. I think Greg and I will forever be at blows over who should have won season two. For me, it is the runway diva herself. It is Eva Blunt. Eva Blunt has to be
Whoa.
on the show. I mean, the thing is that she was so unbothered through any of the critiques, even when she was low. But every time she approached any runway, always had that outsider, whatever the fucking perspective will be, that is so unlike what any other queen will do. I think she's an okay lip syncer from what we saw. But again, the Selena runway, do a runway based on Selena, and she goes as her car. Like, that is the kind of thinking that we need outside of here. And I think Mexico, especially with season two, they got so many goddamn things right on there. Absolutely my pick. Unquestionably, I think she would, and she's just so friendly and approachable and honestly kind of hot with the bowl cut. I think that she would do pretty well. I think the fans would embrace her. But if I had to pick someone as a backup, if we're talking about queens who really deserve another chance, I'm gonna go back to season one, baby. I'm going to go to Matraka. I think Matraka Traka, she was someone who did well, but also it was so hard for any other queen to excel amidst the insane Christian Peralta run that was going on that just denied so many other queens top spots or
Yeah.
wins throughout the whole thing. And we could talk about judging, we could talk about things that they fixed overall in the course of the season. We could talk about Oscar Madrazo. I prefer we don't. But at the same time, Matraka, she truly feels like genuinely, I was kind of surprised that I felt like she would have been the only other pick for Global One outside, assuming she speaks English, outside of Galavero, because Galavero was great, but Matraka truly was that queen. And I feel like, even if she's not on Global All Stars 2, I feel like we're going to see her again. She has that essence of a queen that we'll see at some point. So for me, Eva Blunt #1, my backup is Matraka.
So if I had a top 20 queen, because there's so many queens now
Right.
of all over the world, Matraka is probably in my top 20, hands down. I love her. She's an artist of impeccable taste and talent.
Absolutely.
So at the time, the rumor was that Matraka did not speak English,
Hmm.
but that has seemed to be false because she has done a number of interviews. She even just spoke, I think, to what's her name? Michelle Visage,
Mhm.
and did an interview where she was talking to her. And she's my number one. Like I think she would bring it. I think she
Absolutely.
would stun with runways. I think I don't know how she'd do in the comedy challenges. I don't know how
Fair.
she'd do in like Snatch Game or something, and maybe that would be her hiccup. But she'd do great in the musical stuff. She'd do, any of that sort of thing. And I think she'd have a shot to make it really close to the end, like super close. Uh, she's my number one. My second choice is also from season two.
Ooh.
Definitely not. Also, Eva, wasn't Eva like drama? Like, didn't Eva cause a lot of drama in the workroom? Am I crazy? Do they
Think she
want to
had the
bring
most.
another?
Lixa had more drama than Eva, I'll say that much. But I feel like a lot of times Eva was just defending herself because a lot of queens didn't understand her because she was more the outsider weird queen. At least from what I remember. It's been
But
a minute.
wasn't she always like in the confessionals being like, I was robbed, I was robbed, I should
Did
have won
see
this?
that. Which,
Like,
and to be fair, I didn't see it as drama just because I agreed with her.
I didn't agree with her.
Right.
So part of me is like, after what they just went through with Gala, I think that's the last thing is they want someone who's going to, if they lose a challenge, be hitting the Mexican fan base to like tear down the show again,
Mhm.
which is my biggest concern, to be honest.
Mhm.
My second pick is Horacio Potasio,
That was like right on my cusp of the edge too. Like,
who I think is the substance version of Gala, is
my God.
is younger,
Gallo Eliza
prettier.
Sue. Yeah.
Yeah, Eliza Sue. Uh, I think is just maybe by the time they shoot this will even be better.
Yeah.
Amazing runways in stunning performance. I felt was my winner of the season. I could have easily won.
Yeah.
Um, I
For
think
me,
would
if Eva Blunt didn't win, which she didn't on there, Horacio
yeah,
was right up there with me on there. Like
yeah.
it was a really good top four that they had. Yeah.
And I do think, we talk about storylines. I
Mhm.
think there's something about bringing Gallo's drag daughter, who's a nicer version of Gallo, to GAS that would be really interesting.
Mhm.
But again, I would love Matraka first, but it would not shock me if they picked Horacio. That's
100%.
my. Also, Horacio speaks great English, like I've seen
Good.
in interviews and written and stuff.
I feel like
Um,
fans would rally around Horacio pretty
yeah.
easily. She's so
Also,
likable. So yeah, earnest. Yeah.
hot, but like sweet looking hot,
Right. Yeah.
like cute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Good.
so next up is one of the greatest franchises ever. And I need to know, Evan, who is your first pick from Drag Race Philippines?
I have four backups on this. I'm not even lying. The bench is so
Whoa.
amazing.
Whoa.
It was so hard. It was so hard. It was so hard if I have to go with my gut instincts. And I think it's pretty obvious because she's been on some WoW related content outside of the show. But it's got to be Miss Jade So. I can't be crazy on this one here. Funny, like she seemed like she was going to be a ditzy airhead, and then as the season went on, ended up being one of season two's best competitors. Funny as all fuck out. Genuinely one of the funniest confessional queens in the history of the entirety of the show. And then also could bring some runways. And since the show, she's only gotten weirder and wilder and more experimental. I think I even shouted her out one week as the Queen of the Week because she was just that good. Oh, but when it comes to backup, man, I'll be honest. Like on my list, I have my official pick, but on my list I do have Kiana from season 3 as a potential on there. I think she would do well. I do have John Fideliaga on there too, the queen who everyone counted out as the
Oh.
social media queen, but ended up doing extremely better than
Hmm.
overperformed, but still got screwed over. But if I'm being honest, someone who would bring the drama, a bit of an older queen, but going back to season 1, someone who could do well and also could bring it. I genuinely be curious to see what Silhouette would do on a world stage because the thing is that she was spicy. She brought some fights. Let's make no mistake whatsoever. But when it came to some of the challenges, my God, she had the fashion sense and she could perform. I mean, again, it's Philippines. Almost all you could bring on Lady Morgana. Not that you would, but she
Yeah.
could absolutely perform and do well. But like Silhouette, I feel like has a different energy altogether on there. I would be so curious to see what she would be like on that stage too. But for me, like again, you have any pick is good. For me, Miss Jade So has to be my number one though, genuinely.
So wait, what is your official number two is
My
Silhouette?
official number two is Silhouette.
Okay. So, I, like you for my first pick, will be going into the void and picking Miss Jade Soto. She is an icon. She's a legend. She is the moment.
She
She
is.
will always be the moment. And I just would be so excited for my friends who don't watch the international seasons to experience her and be like, what is this?
Me
Meaning
and my
like
husband, me and my husband still quote, "I'm coming to kill you with my dildos" over and over again because it is such an iconic piece of television, truly.
she's so great. And also I would be stunned. Listen, she might be on Philippines All Stars. I don't know.
Right.
Nobody really knows. But she is a wow favorite. They've already had her on
Tongue tied.
Pangina's thing, tongue
Yeah.
tied. They've showcased her on a bunch of like, oh, she already did the Hey Queen thing. Like
Oh wow.
wow
Okay.
knows what they have something with her there.
Good.
So I'm surprised she hasn't toured more in the US, but she probably doesn't have a like a working permit. But I would be super excited for her. My second choice is I think a queen who just deserves it, who lost a super competitive season, and that's ZP. And I would, am I
From
wrong?
from Thailand?
Oh no, wait, did I write the wrong name down? Wait, hold on. I think I wrote the wrong name down. This is embarrassing.
Okay.
Hold on. Wait, who was second to on this past season? Who came in second on Drag
To who?
Race?
Oh, so the
To
past piece, Kiana was second to Maxi.
right, Kiana. That's what I meant. I'm so sorry. No, no. Who's the one who did Wicked? Who did
That was
the
that was Dimbading.
Zimbading? That's what
Yeah.
I meant. That's why I wrote ZP. I meant
Okay.
Zimbading. Sorry. I meant Zimbading. I swear, Zimbading, if you're
I
listening.
almost had Dimbading on my list too. It's so goddamn
But
deep. Yes.
my because Zimba should have been in the final
She
and she
absolutely
wasn't.
fucking should have.
And
Yes.
that's why she was my pick. She was because she was robbed. I wrote Z because it'd be the next choice for Thailand. But Zimbading would be amazing, and I feel like she would have had just a little more time to glow up, and I think she would sort of kill it. So
Yes.
those were my first two choices. After that, it's sort of like
It's a field
wide
day.
open. Like it
Yeah.
could be anything, but I feel like they want someone who has a shot to win. They want
Hmm.
another Marina. And I think, you know, who did we just have on season one of Global from Philippines?
Oh, we had
Uh,
yeah, Eva the Queen.
Eva the Queen. I think Eva disappointed a little bit, and I think they want someone who isn't, and I think Miss Jade would not disappoint. And I
No, she
don't
would not.
think Zimba Ding would disappoint either. I think she'd do pretty well.
Yeah. 100%. I
We'll
think we're
see.
in there. Yeah.
But
Ooh, it's tight, y'all. Yeah.
speaking of ZP, I guess I've spoiled my first choice for Thailand. So, granted, I have not seen most of the first two seasons. I'm doing bad picks here. So my Thailand picks are both from season three.
I did the same thing too, just because season one is unavailable on here, and
Yeah,
because I feel like they weren't official WoW productions. I feel
yeah.
like it'd be weird to cast from there, so I kind of like again, where English is one thing. I kind of limited myself to season three just because that seems like the most practical of what would be picked. Yeah.
And we also do know that English is a huge issue for the Thailand queens
Mhm.
because they often did not know what Panchina was saying when she was speaking English in the workroom or on the whatever. And by the way, I wouldn't know if she was speaking in Thailand.
Yeah.
My first choice is ZP.
It
I
has to be.
think
Yeah.
it has to be. I think she'd kill it. She almost won her season. And I think she's super talented and just needed probably a little. This probably the experience of doing that show would have prepped her for this in a way that would help her big time.
Yes.
Um, my second choice is because I know she speaks English and she'd bring the runways. Is Siam Pushi, who I
Robbed
think
Queen.
robbed Queen, also Queen who was bullied by her cast and unfairly and would not be in this environment. And I think like Sagittaria would have a storyline that they could relate to each other.
Hmm.
Not that I'm story producing, but like it'd be interesting. So those are my two picks. I know there will be listeners who are fans of the first two seasons and will be this will probably be the two picks that they'll be like, you're crazy. It should be blank, blank, and blank. And I'm
Should
sorry,
be
I just
Kama
haven't
Warrior.
seen
Should be
enough.
Candy Cyanide. Right.
Yeah.
But we're
Or no, from the first two seasons. Like
right.
that I just don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
And I
I,
think
I
that's okay.
apologize in advance. How about
Yeah.
you? Who are your picks?
Well, my number one pick, if I'm being fully honest, out of everyone in Thailand, it's ZP. Like, there's
Yeah.
no other choice. Like, it has to be. She'd be fantastic on the show. But the other one too, when I was thinking about it too, for the record, I would love to see a redemption arc for our sweet, sweet Siam Pushi, obviously.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm thinking about the one who was maybe one of the most professionals on there. Definitely a workhorse, but also a quiet warrior in their own sense, but could freak out. Nani Safira was going to be my backup. I feel like she
Oh.
could do a good job on there. Does she have what it takes to be on the global stage? I don't know, but I do feel like her drag and especially her runways are operating at the level that they would need to be competitive there. ZP
Yeah.
still has that personality thing down, which I think would compel her, but we're working from a one season bench, so I feel like I think these are some of the strongest voices on there. And honestly, given how little people talked about Thailand, just bring back Frankie Wonga because I feel like that would still be
Oh.
its own adventure by itself. But so none of the picks that I've done are of winners, and I think that's what Greg did as well. We're trying to keep it to all stars rules as much as possible.
But I maybe
Right?
we've got time. We've got time.
Right.
There's still three more territories
That
left.
is true. That is true. You never know. What's our next territory, in fact?
Our next franchise is Drag Race Sverige, or as we like to call it, Drag Race Sweden.
Aiden.
And by the way, not a deep bench for Sweden on one season. Also because Vanity Vane also has already been on.
Yep.
Um, so my first choice for Sweden actually was my first choice for Global All Stars. I love that Vanity was on it, but it was Electra, who, if you watch
Oh,
Sweden, you
yeah.
will know came out of retirement to had sort of like was doing drag less and less, and now is doing drag all the time. Electra competed for Eurovision last year to be Sweden's entry and made like top three. Didn't make it to the end, but was like super popular and then ended up being Sweden's official like news reporter like at Eurovision like there. So they have they're on TV in Sweden all the time and they have a they're known. They have a
Yeah.
spotlight there. So I think that would help a little bit, especially if they air it in. So I don't know if people know this, but for Global All Stars, the network that had the rights to Drag Race Sweden just a couple months ago or like last month aired Global All Stars with Swedish subtitles on their terrestrial network. And it
Nice.
was a big deal for Vanity. It was like a thing. My second
Good.
choice is breaking the no winners returning for All Stars rule because the winner of Drag Race Sweden, Admira Thunderpussy, is the definition of high drag. Like she is incredible. She's the Chad Michaels of Sweden, the Chad Michaels of Northern
Electra
Europe.
Vandergeld of Sweden.
Yeah, she is unbelievable. She does speak English. She can sing, and I just feel like it would be a shock. They still wouldn't know that who she was, or
Right.
the other points or why she won. But it would be a really fun twist to bring her back. I don't know if she'd do it, but she probably would. She's full-time queen.
Yeah.
So that those are my two picks. Who are your picks for Sweden?
That's so fascinating. Well, also for the record, I do think Elmira would she would bring the drama, make no mistake.
Yes.
She would critique other queens' looks without question in the workroom on here. For me, listen, I think she is a ball of energy and joy and sunshine. It's almost like counter programming to a sense versus some of the other queens. It's got to be Fontana as my number one pick. It really truly has to be. Robbed Greg has thoughts and opinions on Fontana's run, I'm sure. But I think
No.
genuinely, I think she would be a fantastic alternative on there. I think that she really, I mean, she was competitive all the way straight through. She really gave Admira a run for her money throughout the season too. But if I had to pick my backup, and I'm digging in a little bit deep on here. This is someone who is primarily runway focused, but my God, runways, and also has maybe one of the best drag names in all of history on here. Let me tell you, if they announce that coming to the stage is Santana Sex Machine, I think
Oh
that there would
yeah.
be, because genuinely, like, I'm not even kidding. Her run on the show, she had some fantastic runways. She was undone by some
Yeah.
of the performing challenges on there. But is this the kind of thing where I'm willing to give? Again, it's the kind of thing. There's a lot of other queens, and you've seen from some of our picks already that have made it to top three or top four that we're not picking because there's still something else to them. There's something
Yeah.
more personality about them or a perspective that they're giving that's unique. And I think Santana Sex Machine had that all the way straight through her season, even though she went out when she did. I feel like, especially with enough time, she could devour some of those runways as well. But that's only if Fontana was not available on there. I still think would be a fun pick, but that we're dealing with a one season bench, so I'm not too surprised by some of these picks here.
So once again, for Floor, she might be a
Uh,
little busy in about a week.
hmm
Uh, which means, and to be honest, I think Floor has a great shot at the what
Floor,
she's about to do quite well.
Floor, or
So that's
Fantana.
why I did not pick Floor.
Okay.
But I do think Floor is an amazing freaking queen, and I think whatever she does next, she's going to kill it. But I said Santana is a really interesting choice. I think it's really interesting. I'm just glad neither of us picked Antonia.
Not
Uh, what's her wait? How do you say it? Thumb,
Antonina, Antonina Nutshell.
Antonina Nutshell. Who's
Oh.
based in the UK and probably should have stayed in the UK, but kept coming back. I think she was eliminated and returned to the season. Am I
She did.
crazy?
Yep, she did. She came back, returned, and was in the bottom two when she came
And
back.
and then she had another horrible runway. But
Yep.
almost iconic. Almost iconic,
Low
Evan.
key, yeah.
But Evan, we got two big territories to go.
Oh, if we overlap over any of these, I would be fucking stunned,
I
genuinely.
will be stunned.
Yeah.
But speaking of the UK, Evan, give me your number one pick to do Britain, to do England justice, to make everyone forget about Kitty Scott Claus's run on Global All Stars.
Here's the thing, and I truly mean this. I'm very happy with a lot of my picks. I've loved contrasting with yours as well. I think we come from a lot of the same perspective of what
Yeah,
would make a good TV show. This pick could win. This pick could do it. This pick should have won because they were so fucking close on here. Y'all, if Cheddar Gorgeous walked into that runway, I mean, she would bring literally everything. We can tell, we know she's funny, we know she can
yeah.
perform, and her runways, hands down, are some of the most interesting and compelling and fascinating that we've seen. She's a joy to be around. She's not a total bitch as some of the other queens that we've had, but she holds her own. I think that, especially on a global stage, when you think about if she's competing with people from Thailand or Mexico or whatnot, she would hold her own. I think that if she wanted to do it, would be spectacular. Of course, I've always wanted Davina Campo to come back, but she never has, and that's totally her choice. I'm almost confident Bimini will never come back, even though she just showed up at DragCon UK, which I love. But I think she's too famous to have to. Yeah, if she really needed the
No,
money,
she needs money.
yeah,
Yeah.
she
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 likes
needed.
drag again. All of a sudden, she likes drag.
She's the Bruno Mars of drag.
Yes.
And to that said, but man, when it came to a backup, I was so stuck on what to do. So I had to think about it. I had to go into my archive, and I know how much you love Lavoie. I'm kidding. No, I'm not going to
Oh.
pick that. I it is it I had to it's Scarlet Harlot, my absolute favorite. No, I'm kidding. My absolute one I had to go with though, and she again fresh off the season, but I think she would really be entertaining as well. It would be Marmalade. I think she could be. I think she's
Oh.
genuinely operating at that level, especially I felt like especially in the back half of the season versus what we saw. She was like just her runways were consistently at this angle where
Yeah.
it's like some of the stuff she had was some of the best they'd ever seen on the show. I think she would do spectacularly well. And that there was a part of me that as like kind of maybe sort of a backup on there because she has been showing up a little bit more on a couple things and she did have
Yeah.
good runways and I didn't love her on her season. I do think Ahura could potentially be up there as a potential just in that realm. But for me, my top pick has to be Cheddar Gorgeous. My number two is Marmalade.
So I, like you, I've actually seen this queen perform live. She performed in Los Angeles. She used to tour the US years ago. And before the Boulay brothers had Queen Kong at Precinct, they had this monthly night party called Dragula, which then became Dragula the TV show. But they would always have a contest for like a horror queen, and they'd bring in a famous queen to perform. And that's the first time I saw Cheddar Gorgeous perform live. And she was absolutely incredible. So I've always been a Cheddar Gorgeous stan. So I also, my number one pick would be Cheddar. I know
Uh,
she'd at least make it to the top four.
Unquestionable.
I don't know if Rue likes her. I don't know if Rue loves her enough to let her
Mm,
win.
mm.
But I love Cheddar. I think she would absolutely kill it. And I think people would be rooting for her. And I feel like she has more fans among my. I feel like I've got a group of friends who like only watch the English language, like
Same.
international, and they watch UK, and they didn't love Kitty. And I would always be like, but Kitty, even before they watch Global, they're like, I don't
Yeah.
like Kitty. And I'd be like, she's fun. And I never really understood that, but they love Cheddar. Then, and I feel like that would be a ton of goodwill and great casting. My
Hmm.
second choice is also someone I think my friends adore, and I think is just so much freaking fun. I actually thought she should have won her season, and I feel is just would kill it on runways and lip syncs and confessionals and comedy challenges, and that's Tamara Thomas.
Oh,
I think
okay.
Tamara Thomas would be a bolt of lightning on Global All Stars. I think she would kill it. And I think she'd have a blast and she'd bring positive energy. And I would be super curious to do it. And also, no, she's not going to be on UK Versus. And then one other queen, you said Ahura. I also like Ahura too.
Yeah.
One other like alternate, and I don't know how far she'd go, but she would kill it with runways. And that's Black Peppa. And Black Peppa would bring like in so many ways. I don't I think she's sort of shy. Like I don't know how well she can do in comedy challenges or like if she give enough confessionals that they'd love. But I stand Black Peppa and I
Mhm.
would love to have her on.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What is your reaction, Evan?
I think those are fantastic picks overall. Black Peppa, I feel like there is such a bench of queens who almost made it that could be there. I feel like Black Peppa, Davina, there's just this deep group of queens. And honestly, if she wanted to do it tastes, I think she might be a little bit too famous for the show potentially at this point now, having just won Strictly. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like it is the bench here is absolutely insane. And yes, you can say that, I'm worried about the rumors that Scarlet Harlot might be back on our screens again soon. We'll see. But there are so many genuinely great queens, even from this last season that we just had, that could do well, that could make an impact. So I think your picks are good. I am love that our number one pick was exactly the same
Yeah.
because that just shows just how good it was. My backup Vinegar Stroke somehow wasn't available to be able to be there, or
Not
Scaredy
not something wrong. Not something wrong.
I mean, listen, but the thing I love about season one of UK is that it's just like a bunch of girls and then the people who do well. Like the dividing line is so, and then by season two, it's a completely different thing. Which, by the way, I
Yes.
was thinking the other day, like, man, no one's really heard from Sister Sister at all, have they? I don't know.
No.
He's
I think
doing.
she quit drag.
He did?
You know who I forget about all the time from UK is Ellie Diamond.
Oh,
And I forget about Copper Top.
yeah.
But I do, it's funny, I remember her and I feel like she now doesn't even get the respect she deserves.
Hmm.
And that's Ella Day, who
Yes.
who almost won that season
It,
and is still doing drag, still does high quality, and
she
just
just showed up on
I
season 6, just to do that, talk about the
yeah.
whole fan game. Yeah, the
And
roast.
I think if they had had just better runways, would be more respected by the fan base. But
I
she didn't think
agree.
she was going to make it far, and she just
I wanted her to win that season there because the top three was her and Kitty and Crystal Versace, and I think was
yeah,
for me the obvious winner. But as one of my friends pointed out, I really hate her because every time she's on the runway, I don't know what her point of view is. And to be honest, I think that's
yes,
fair. I think that's a fair
it's
point
very
because
true.
it's like she had good looks, but I mean, actually, I take that back. She didn't have good looks. She had because looks that were kind of all over the place on there, which is a shame because she was so goddamn entertaining. So yeah, it's a mixed bag on there. But again, UK, one of the deepest benches, almost as deep
Yes,
as all 17 now seasons of the United States of America. I'm gonna
the
put a dollar
good.
on the table. I'm gonna do the Monet and Diabetes $1,000 bet if any one of our top two picks match up at all whatsoever, because I will be stunned and surprised and delighted at the same time. But Greg, I gotta know, what are your picks for the U.S. representation in Global All Stars?
I am 99% convinced that my number one pick will shock you, and you will not have expected it.
Okay.
My number one pick is not a queen that has done US All Stars yet.
Okay. Okay.
My pick
Guess
is
who?
someone who I feel will, if I'm producing a show, get casual fans to watch because they loved her. She almost won her season,
Mm-hmm.
and she's a talent.
Mm-hmm.
She is also toured Asia already twice, I think, done a bunch of gigs in Asia, and has done a very successful Latin America tour. And that is Las Vegas's own Anitra.
Oh.
I think Anitra doing Global All Stars would be a massive win for the franchise. I think it would make Paramount say, okay, we'll run this. Uh, and so that's my number one. And I don't know if she'll do it, to be honest. I don't know if she there's this whole thing. She's had issues, physical issues or mental issues. It's unclear what she's battled since she's been on the show.
Mhm.
Supposedly physical, like medical issues. But there's these things where she's canceled gigs and it's not really true. It's like she did last year, but like she hasn't really
I
canceled
saw some
anything.
TikToks like just the last week of her performing recently, so
Yeah.
she's back on the train
But
somehow. Yeah.
but she's really bad at social media, like really bad,
Yeah.
and like insanely bad. And I don't think that's helped her. And I
Mhm.
do wonder if that would give Paramount and WoW pause to be
Mhm.
like, do we do this? But I think they should. I think it would make. Listen, she'd make top four hands down. But she also wouldn't be guaranteed to win.
Mhm.
And I
Same
think
top
that's
two. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, but I think it could be incredible if she did it. My second choice is a little more predictable,
Okay.
but I'd love to see it. Although she's now working with moguls of media, which may have fucked her up. And that's the one and only Naomi Smalls,
Naomi Smalls, baby.
who I feel like would come back and has said she'd do the show again. And was, to be honest, amazing on season season four, right?
Season
Yeah.
5.
Oh, was it season five? No.
No, no, no. Sorry, no, you're right. She was on
Right, she was on the season that Monet and
she was on
Trinity won.
season 8 and then All Stars 4. Sorry, that's what I was
Yeah,
thinking of.
also, yeah, eight and All Stars four.
Yeah.
And also killed it on season four. Like, and with the iconic sending home, Manila.
Uh-huh.
And also, Life's Not Fair. Like, just great television. If you
Mhm.
ever watch her do any like of sibling watchery or any of the podcasts, she did her own last season.
Mhm.
Um, just great, fun commentary, and
Honest
just
commentary.
honest commentary, and but not mean, not
Right.
mean. And I just think she'd kill it. So those are my two. Who are your two picks as we wrap this up, Evan?
Those are great. Those are fantastic picks. The bench is so deep, so wild. Rebecca Glasscock. I'm kidding. No, I think I would have. For me, I'm thinking about like who would actually be competitive on there. And again, Anitra, I was like, is she still doing it? That was my question to kind of hold me back from her. But if she's still out there and doing it, fantastic. I agree, would be
Yeah.
fantastic. My number one pick is also someone who made it top two, who I guess just recently had a documentary come out about them that apparently gives a lot of insight into
Oh,
making it
interesting.
show itself, and someone who I only found out after the fact. Some of my friends helped, are actually very involved in their creative team. I was very shocked to find out. But Lady Camden, I think, is someone who could represent on a global stage. Who it's the one again. She's a queen who at first we kind of almost wanted to discount, but then you realize that when she's performing, oh, she's an all-out performer. She will go all out and will kind of upset some of those expectations that you have.
Mhm.
And I think actually could bring, especially now with enough time, could bring some of those runways out to the light. I think a lot of people love her. She's also the only queen, I think, to win $50,000 for placing second in a season. So she's got the
True.
money. We know that for sure. But Lady Camden would be my pick. And God, there's such a deep bench. My backup pick, I really had to think about queens that I really liked. And I think that some queens are very obviously going to be safe for another All Stars because, listen, I want my girl Denali back. I want my girl Asia back. I definitely want Safira Cristal to have another shot at it too. But people who would be competitive, and I'm not sure if she'd win, but someone who did make good TV, I think, and would be even more competitive in this environment, Morphine Love Dion. I know she's recent, but I do think
Oh.
she was someone who, again, early on in the season, I counted out in season 16, and she won me over week after week, not only with her performances, but she could show she had one of the best mugs on the season outright. And I feel like it's with enough time, with enough confidence, and obviously since she's now recovered from her car accident that she suffered on DragCon weekend,
Mhm.
I think could really has something to prove. And I feel like she would do that, would have a narrative behind her as well. And again, not sure if she'd win, but I think she could be in contention. So of all of the seasons on there, those were my two picks. I would have been shocked if we matched up with any one of them, but I think those are some solid choices.
Well, first of all, I'm just happy neither of us picked Jujubee. But I have to say Morphine is super inspired because she's already done a number of European gigs. She's
Hmm.
done some gigs in Spain with some of the Spain girls, and she's become friends with a number of the international queens. So I think it's a smart like symbiotic connection when you can do that. That's why I was like um excited for who did I pick that I thought was like had done some was like friends with a bunch of the international queens that I was like or had toured. Who was it? It was Sagittaria, like being
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
friends.
yeah.
Yeah, and Setter Jean is friends, and Miss Jade Soto is like all
Miss
has
Fierce Delicious,
yeah,
a little bit.
Miss
Yeah.
Fierce Delicious. They're all friends with them, and I feel like that would only make it better.
Hmm.
I think Morphine's great, but I wait. Who's your first choice again? It
Lady
was
Camden.
Lady. So my problem with Lady
Okay.
Camden
Oh, yeah,
though
please.
is because she's British, and I feel like Paramount or MTV would be like, no, they
Hmm.
want an American or an American sounding like citizen.
Hmm.
And Lady Camden is an American citizen, but she gives very British.
Lady Camden. That's literally her name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I love Lady Camden. I'm
Yeah.
actually wish Lady Camden was on the upcoming season of All Stars, and she's not.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, but I don't know why they hold some queens back, but I love her and she's a great performer and super fucking smart. But I would not be mad at Morphine at all. And you know who wouldn't either? Is Paramount or MTV. They'd love her.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Like, because we know Saphira, she's going to appear in another season too. I'm sure they're going to bring back Plain Jane at some point, which I have certain feelings about.
You can't bring Plain Jane on Global All Stars. Not this soon.
Yeah,
Also, she does can't control herself. She's still too like
she's young.
pokes the bear. Even like
Yeah.
you have to put her on a regular All Stars and hope she grows up in like 5 years and like calms down because it would just the whole idea is you don't want what you had with Queen and Kitty. Like that's the whole point. Like you
Hmm.
don't want fan bases getting mad because they think queens are going to be mean and Plain would not be able to control herself. Like there's just no way.
So that leaves the question then of whenever they do announce Global All-Star Season 2 in that cast, how many of the picks that Greg and I said just now are correct? That's the real question. I think if we should have
Wait,
some sort of prize for ourselves if it happens. Yeah.
you tell me how many. Well, this will be saved. This will be archived.
Yeah. Right.
How many of our first choice picks? So we have how many countries do we have here? We have one, two,
15?
15.
Yeah.
How many of the 15 number one picks do you think will be on the next Global All Stars 2 season?
So they're probably only going to pick 12.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to just be safe, and maybe this is a little bit high. Who knows? I think at least four between, because we had a couple matchup picks. I think four are probably going to be definitely in there.
I also would say four. We also could be shocked because it's so many queens. It could be three.
Yeah.
But I think at least three.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
Absolutely.
At least three.
Yeah.
So Evan, we had talked that we were gonna actually sort of do a little quick dive into Drag Race season 17, RuPaul's Drag Race season 17.
Mhm.
But we have talked for so long on this
Yes.
podcast. I think what our listeners deserve next week is the podcast where we catch up halfway through RuPaul's Drag Race 17. So we can talk about LA Slaycation diva Joella. We can talk about um bad design challenges. We can talk about the Badonkadonk tank, which, 1 and 7. How
One and
dumb are
seven.
these girls to not figure out if the first one was 7, maybe you should pick number 1. And
Your
whether it's
outie
rigged.
said earnestly that there should be more improv challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to catch up on. So I think that's great. And I think that is something we can look forward to next week. Obviously, we're still waiting for the announcement of any international season to start, in which we will cover diligently, dear fans. But in the meantime, we have to end the episode like we do every single week, which is we have to pick out a queen that we think deserves some genuine love from some of the places, whether they be a Rue girl or no. And in this case, I'm just going to go first a little bit. I'm going to pick out one of the ones that I think deserves a little bit of love. And listen, I hate to be boring, I hate to be repetitive on here, but I gotta go with some of my favorite girls based out of the OPH. And this time I'm going to go for Ava Papyra. She is a performer, she is a choreographer, she is genuinely one of the most incredible makeup artists that I've seen. And she is actually part of the Raging Divas collective over in the Philippines as well. She's performed at a whole bunch of bars. She's done actually a lot of television work. She actually brought a lot of queens with her onto the Philippines iteration of Family Feud and competed as a team, which is kind of wild to me. But she hits up O-Bar, she hits up all the places as well. She's actually, I think, kind of a legend in the scene as well. And she has, and I mean this truly, for being as iconic as she is, for being a woman that has appeared with so many of the other Philippines Rue girls night after night, she has maybe one of the smallest followers on Instagram account that I've ever had.
Mm.
She has, and I mean this as I say this, I pulled it up just now to be safe. She has 736 followers on Instagram. I think that is a crime. I think that is something that needs to be rectified on there. So I'm giving my shout out to another incredible Filipino sister, Eva Papaya. I'm not sure if she's in the age bracket where she would want to compete again or compete on the Philippines at all. If she did, that'd be great. But I love sending some love to some of those girls. So Eva Papaya is my pick for the week, and the at handle is going to be in the description below. Let's get it above 736. I'm confident we can. And while you're at it, follow us at Worldwide Tea Podcast on Instagram as well. Greg continues to post great stuff on there. Please do so. But
Yes.
that's my
And also, before we sign off and I give
yes.
my pick, follow us, subscribe to us on Apple
YouTube,
Podcasts, on
Apple,
Spotify,
yeah,
share it with your friends, go in and give us a rating. Like that would
yeah.
be freaking awesome. We'd love it. But more importantly, my pick is a queen known as Tiara Skye.
Ooh,
She's from the UK. You
okay.
may have seen her video. She's a trans queen where she goes out in the streets of London and just goes up with a microphone and talks to queens to people in the and
Yeah, 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 yeah,
straight
yeah. No, I've
people.
seen her.
And she's hilarious and super funny.
Oh,
She's
that's a good
also
pick.
originally from South Africa.
Oh,
And there is a rumor that she may be the host of Drag Race South Africa. She
really?
was also at DragCon UK. So we'll see. I don't know if I believe it, but she has 151,000 followers already. Like she's a popular,
The exact
she is,
opposite of Ava Papaya.
yeah, she has made
Yeah.
herself like a popular personality already just by doing all these videos. I mean, I have 161 friends who also follow her, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. And also a bunch of famous like drag girl, like Nikki Doll and like Davina, like a ton of people follow her. Um, Orville Peck follows her. Like, so she's got a thing.
For
You
different
should
ways.
follow
Yeah,
her. And just check her out. But she's super funny. She's hilarious. And you may see who maybe it's a con. Maybe she's not really going to host it. But if she is, she would be iconic. Like understatement. But we'll
yeah.
see. So that's my pick of the week. But Evan, you know what's happening? We're recording this on Sunday, February 2nd, and we are
Uh-huh.
2 hours away from Taylor Swift losing a Grammy, I hope.
We
So
hope.
it's time to get ready for the Grammys.
I know we got to get ready, baby, and I will be watching. I will be live tweeting from my personal accounts over on Blue Sky and maybe another site. But by all means, do
Oh,
follow us there. As always, in our episode notes, we do list our socials. If you want to follow us there and give us some interactions, by all means. If you have any additional things to say for us, please always worldwideteapodcast@gmail.com if you have some tea that you want to share. But in the meantime, Greg, as always, a pleasure doing this with you. I hope some of our picks come to fruition for Global.
fingers crossed. Thanks so much, guys.
All right, we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.